Hello everyone. So today I thought I'll probably show you something very simple, but it might be useful. Now, in your org mode init file, you have the option to define some variables, and those variables, when you define them there, they will of course have an impact based on, of course, how you define it. Let us say across. Basically, the impact will be, or the variable will be set, I guess, globally. But sometimes you need to set some variables locally, right? And it is of course possible to set these variables globally by defining it. I mean, there are a couple of ways of doing it. Either you can execute a piece of code so that it is so that the variable is set for that particular session, or if you want to make sure that you want to set, let us say, some variables all the time. For example, when I work on LaTeX, I basically configure the directory where I want to store my downloaded images using org-download. But for example, in this particular case, I have this variable set up, which is org-tree-slide-cursor-init, which is by default set to T. And I set it to nil here because I want, for example, when you start a presentation using org-tree-slide mode, you can, of course, I mean, by default, the presentation will start from the very beginning of the file. But sometimes I just want to present, or maybe I want to start the presentation from a specific subtree. Let us say I want to focus on this particular, what is org mode, right? I don't really want to start the presentation from overview. So if this variable is set to nil on top, this presentation will start from, let us run it, org-tree-slide mode, and you can see it starts from org, what is org mode, right? Which is useful. Now the thing is that you can obviously configure these variables on top, but sometimes, I mean, usually when you configure the variable on top like this, you can of course close the file and then reopen it, and then it will work. Or if the file is in your agenda as well, then even while starting your org agenda, you will be prompted to select whether you want to configure or basically set the variable always by default. I mean, it won't really prompt you for a message, but a good thing that you can do is, like, for example, when you're working on a document, you don't really want to close or open the file again. What you can do, you can just move your cursor to your headers, one of the header, and press Control C, right? And what will happen? It will actually, in a way, refresh your file, and it will also ensure that your variables, if you set them, are reset. For example, let us say I say, by the way, if you want to check the variable, or the value of the variable which is set, you can do something like describe, I guess, variable, right? Or you can do Control H and then V, and then you can type in your variable name, which is org-tree-slide-cursor, whatever, in it, and it will tell you that, okay, the variable is right now set to nil, right, which is correct. But if I set it to T again, let us check the variable. So if I set it to T, nothing will happen, right? For example, if I go to Emacs org mode and I start the presentation again, it is now, because it's still active. But sometimes what happens is that you need to restart. This is something, or basically you need to close the file and reopen it. And I'm not really sure exactly how the caching works. I'm sure there is some kind of caching. I think there is something about caching. But what I found useful is that if you want to, I mean, of course, we can check the variable name again. Let us check the variable here. Control H V, and the variable name, which is now, okay. So the variable is set to nil here, and I'm not really sure if when you run the tree slide mode, I guess it will look for the variable which is declared on top, but I guess the variable is not indeed set, so it is still showing as nil. But if you want to actually set it, what you can do, you can press Control C at the header, and now if you notice, because we changed the variable and I want to update, because it is now prompting you to basically make sure that, I mean, it is up to you whether you want to whether you want to be prompted again all the time. So you can press exclamation mark if you want to basically permanently mark these values, but I prefer to, I mean, for this particular, in this particular case, I don't really mind. So I'll just press Y. And if I now check the variable again, let us check the value. So now it is T. So let me just change it back to nil. And let me just try to start the presentation. Maybe export from org file. Let us see from where the presentation starts. So now it is not working. So there is something. I mean, usually if you notice this problem where your variable is, you're trying to set a variable, but it is not really working, and you don't really want to close the file, you can simply press Control C. No, not Control C, Control C and C, right? Let us just, come on, I need to close it. Okay, so I want to set the variable again. I want to make sure it is nil. So I can do Control C, Control C. Now the file is refreshed. I'll go to, let us say, the actual, or the header where I want to start the presentation. So I can do org-tree-slide mode, and it is now working, right? So I can again check the variable, Control H V, and it is now nil. So basically, if you press Control C and Control C again, it will refresh. So that was the thing that I wanted to talk about, how to refresh your local setup. All right, this is something actually because these are very small changes, but I think when you're working on something and you need speed, you basically need to know about these things so that you're efficient. Because even these small changes or these small steps, it might take just literally 2 seconds to do it. Like maybe you want to close the file, open the file again, but why spend two seconds if you can just do it in maybe half a second, or at least because it is a bit annoying, right? Because you don't really want to lose context of what you were doing. And one thing that for example, when I'm working on a big document, right? Let us say I'm working on this big document where I'm working on this particular header, right? And I can of course narrow it, right? Narrowing works. I'm looking for a efficient way to basically, let us say I want to, I want to go up and I want to come back to the same place where I left. So I'm not really sure if there is a way to do it. Like remember the last place or the last point in the document or the last line where you were. I'll find it out, because I think this is slightly annoying, because if the document is, I mean, usually in my org files I have, like you can see, even this org file has like 1,000+ lines. It's a big document, and although I have these folded and I have these modes enabled where the file looks neat, it's not like asterisks. It's basically based on I think I'm using the bullet mode, which makes the readability of the file really useful and neat. But I'm looking for this, going back to the last location where you were on the same file. I know, of course, I can search for it, but you don't really always. You might not remember the exact header name, or searching is probably it's going to work, of course. But I was looking for like a shortcut. Okay, press the shortcut and you're back to the point. Okay, I'll probably keep you posted, but hopefully you found this video useful, because I showed you how to refresh your local setup in your file. And yeah, that is it. That is all I wanted to talk about today. Bye bye.